Unity South Africa, Owen Nkomo, Chief Investment Officer from Inkunzi Wealth. And gentlemen, one of the strong issues there, the big issues, was debt. South Africa living on credit cards, living beyond its means. You've both raised concerns about that. One of the players responsible seems to be SARS. He spoke about those VAT refunds that nobody seemed to know was coming until recently. Mr. Pityana, can we at least say that SARS is being looked at, maybe fixed?
Well, debt refunds actually have been acted on. Remember, he announced, the VAT refunds. He announced this in October during the medium term, and already SARS has acted on that and started administering that. So that's very encouraging to business. And secondly, the developments around SARS, the Commission of Inquiry, the action taken to remove the commissioner, the announcement that is made around the units that are going to be focusing on efficiencies in collection, targeting contraband, and also ensuring that big business comes to the party. All of those things make a great deal of sense, and it does suggest that the recommendations of the Commission are being taken seriously and are being implemented. Is one of the best parts of the speech, actually. But this has to be complemented by other measures around anti-corruption, because one of the biggest issues on the expenditure side is leakage that comes with corruption, and this is huge leakage. I mean, you're talking about the amount of money that is throwing at SARS now could very well be the amount that is estimated as amount that is lost due to corruption. So he sits in his office with the chief procurement officer. One of the things that you do in the private sector when you are cutting down costs is to look with a very close eye at what's happening in your procurement space and how much you can claw back on people trying to do business with government, and make sure that you reduce that. So it can't just be reducing your public wage bill, which I think is a problem. It must be dealt with. But there are other areas of savings in the state system which can be effected. There
have been measures, a database, making sure that government officials don't do work with the states. So you're saying they're not going far enough?
Well, those don't go far enough. I think that that's a good step. It's an important step. But you know what? I mean, they don't need to do work with state officials. Don't need to do work with the state system, but they have friends and family and relatives who they encourage to do work. And you have procurement arrangement that see loading of prices, and government pays far too much often for what it has to pay for social investment, social infrastructure investment, schools, building of clinics, and things like that. So private sector would easily pay half of what government pays for most of those costs. So you need to really focus on reining in runaway expenditure that comes with corrupt practices in the system. Corruption is one of the biggest assaults on our democracy and our stability of our economy. So it has to be tackled on ruthlessly. Some of the measures that he announced that lie with an NPA are things that the president had announced, but we need to take some really ruthless steps to deal with corruption.
It's a scourge. Owen, earlier Razia Khan was talking about the rand, which dropped, but then came back and actually strengthened. Were you watching that? And what do you think investors are thinking? Was this an attempt at an investor-friendly budget?
Yeah, it is. It's in my view, it's been said here that it's an election budget. You know, like I said, there is not too much in there that says take your money out and go and invest in South Africa right now. And I think we still have a long way to go before we can stabilize some of the big issues there. Eskom, it's a long way before we can even stabilize debt, the debt to GDP ratio. I'm worried that it might actually continue to go the opposite way. It might not get better, in my view. If you think about it, the second biggest ticket that the government pays for after education is social grants. In a country where we are battling to create jobs, it means that perpetually we're going to have to be forced to continue to see that ticket also increase, and then the interest bill as well is going to continue to increase. So what one wants to see happening instead is a situation where money is taken to create investment, an investment friendly environment that can attract foreign investments. For example, let's talk about more tax breaks and tax incentives for foreign investors when they come to South Africa, and even local investors when they're investing in the country, so that you can start to give a little bit more return for the investors. And attract them and give them a reason to come and spend money in South Africa, what that will do is create jobs and potentially down the line reduce this very big social grants bill, which is not necessarily, it's not necessarily taking the country forward from managing our finances, but we're just spending on a ticket that I think could be easily addressed by creating jobs instead of fostering people to depend on the state. That is a very big challenge. And then another thing that could have been done, let's just privatize South African Airways. What is wrong with privatizing SAA? If not, give us a very good reason why it cannot be privatized. Because every billion matters. Every billion matters that this company loses. All the other state-owned enterprises, every single billion would add up down the line to 100 billion. If we fight corruption, if we privatize some of these companies, and if we attract offshore investors by giving them tax incentives, I think we could look at a different picture in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, you could say he's actually deferred that debate, that SAA debate for now. You said earlier, though, those details were not there. Sipho, what about investment? I was a bit disappointed. So I guess the talk has been the new dawn, investment coming into South Africa. Then we get these figures in the budget review. Investment fell year on year in the first 3 quarters of last year.
Yeah, I mean, part of that was uncertainty about where we're going as a country. And I think that the president, in a lot of his interventions and interactions with business, has given certain reassurances. There have been a number of policy shifts which created some certainty, but not far enough. Some of the movement, for instance, in the mining sector and the steps taken around tourism, even though they don't go far enough, they signal a movement that suggests that that's positive. But the biggest drag on the South African economy is the happenings at Eskom. I mean, the uncertainty that Eskom creates in this economy is overwhelming. So in part, it's understandable.
This was before the load shedding.
Oh, absolutely. We raised this as a business at the end of the year last year, that the 2 major issues that are confronting this economy is Eskom and the runaway debt that we seem to be confronted with. And of course, other things around creating a favorable policy environment. But Eskom has a potential to sink this economy and this country. So we do have to fix it, but at the same time, we also have to look at alternative energy supplies, because this economy can't drive without this. There are fears about what happens with restructuring of state-owned entities. And yet we have a fantastic example of restructuring of Telkom. And it is now a model of success, and yet it competes with other telecommunication suppliers in the economy. It is possible to look at various permutations of restructuring of state-owned entities.
Well, we're running out of time, so let me leave you with this, Owen. What about this talk of the PIC possibly investing in Eskom? So the finance minister mooted that today, bringing back those headlines. Will the PIC be raided to save SOEs? Or is that a good option somewhere between full state support and privatization?
Well, that's a tough one. For me, it's easy. I work with people that retire from the government employees pension fund, and I think that their monies must continue to be invested properly. You can't keep raiding the PIC's coffers and saving some of the state-owned enterprises that are not necessarily showing signs of improvement, in the short term or even in the long term. I haven't got a concrete plan that says investing in Eskom is a great idea. And I think that we must be very careful about how we use our retirees' monies that are sitting in the PIC. And the rhetoric around PIC being, a pot that the government can dip in when they need cash, we must really stay away from that, because it's people's monies.
Okay, and I think this will definitely come up again. Thank you so much to both of you for your time this evening. Sipho Pityana from Business Unity South Africa, Owen Nkomo from Inkunzi Wealth.